I think we have to start optimizing for success in everything we do. This sort of went along with what I said in the first video, but I guess sort of what I want to talk about is like having the best life for yourself and like not even believing in failure as an option. Because like I have certain goals I want to reach, and like I'm starting college here soon, and it's like I have this belief within me that tells me that I can do anything. And as kids we're taught like, oh, we shouldn't think that for some reason, like have realistic expectations. And I think that's honestly the most harmful thing that someone could say to a child, because it just ruins your self-confidence. It's like to me the pros outweigh the cons if you believe something like that, where it's like if you believe everything's going to be great. And it's not in sort of terms of like expectations. I don't think that you should have any expectations when you do something, but more of just like that you'll have success through anything that you do. I think that we should just strive for success in what we do, but along with that is you have to believe that you can do it. Because if you don't believe that you can do it, but you're still just striving for success, and that's where there's this like tension where you're putting in the effort, but like the outlook isn't there, and your like mind isn't connecting that you can actually do that. So there's like resistance in your mind. And I think that's sort of what I'm getting at here, is it's like we have to sort of focus on just being as positive as possible in terms of our outlook and what we're doing with our life, and sort of prioritizing the bigger picture success. It's like it's easy to just go day by day and like do the things that you need to do. If you're working a job, just being like a faithful person to other people, and whether it's within like your relationships or anything that you're doing or a skill that you're learning, you just be faithful day to day with those things. But with that, you have to accompany that with a positive outlook on success and for your life. And this is the problem that most people don't have, I think. And if you have these two things, or if you show up every day and do the things you need to do, and also have this outlook for success, then you're really going to get to where you want to be. Like, there's no question about it. And I don't see that being taught anywhere or anything like that. And I think it's when you have this, division between the two, where like one's pointing this way, one's pointing that way, like they're pulling on each other, and you can't succeed. And then you end up with like a mediocre life, because like you still put in some effort and you got some place where it's good enough, but you're not going further beyond that where you really want to be. But your mind is limiting yourself, because ever since it was a kid, it said, oh, I couldn't do that. So it's really like, I feel like the process where I'm in right now is like relearning how to do that right, like how to optimize your mind to think in that way. And it's so hard, and with everything in our culture, it tells you to do the opposite. It's like you just have all these like memories of the past where it didn't work out, or you have these things that have been put in your mind where it's like you got to be realistic about these things. You can't be delusional or whatever. But I think the solution really comes in being delusional. And and I've heard a lot of people talk about it. It's like just taking out your limiting self-beliefs, because that's what's holding you back. It's not, oh, how can I optimize my life more physically with the habits that I have. I think it's very easy to do those things. Like, you can in some ways just like, as long as you have it on a calendar and you start doing them and you get doing them, whether it's going to the gym, if you're pursuing getting good at an instrument or some sort of art form, but even like making like content like this or something, if you put in the effort every day, like that's half the battle. But everyone tells you that that's the only battle, but that's only half the battle. The other half, I would say arguably more than that first half, comes in with your mind and how you approach it. It's sort of, you have to expect to be great and expect greatness from what you're doing, where success isn't an option, but it's really the only answer. It's sort of like, you plug in a 2 + 2 and it equals 4. If you're doing the 2 and the 2, you're going to get 4, because that's just the way the universe works, right? And obviously, like, there's bad things that will happen alongside the way, and it's not saying that it's going to be perfect, but I believe you really will reach the end goal. It may look a little different, But if you make sure to have fun while you're doing it and achieving it, and that brings me to another point where it's not all about the end goal, it's about the journey to get there, right? It's important to have goals and sort of a picture that you want. If that's like, oh, I want to get married, I want to have a family, I want these certain things. But it's like, if that's your, like, you can't hold on to that every day. You got to take the small wins, that happen maybe in a week or in a month or in a year even, and you just stack those and just stack those. And every now and then, you're going to remember the bigger picture, whether it's like, I don't know, if it's just something that you're going through throughout the week and you get like reminded of that. For instance, for me, it's like I'm a Christian. So what I believe is that, I know that, I'm not in this perfect state of like Zen all the time, but there are times, during the week or like during the month where it's like I have these like meetings where like I feel like I'm talking with God and he's giving me like an outlook on my future, and he's reminding me that it's like it's still there. And I think a lot of people are just like, oh well, there's gonna be trials in our life and tribulations and all that. It's like, sure, but like if you set on that instead of the positive success that you can have, then I think you're never gonna succeed. I think God wants us to have a positive outlook, or like whatever you believe, it's just you have to have a positive outlook about whatever you're doing. You can't let failure seep in, because there's failure and there's success, and then there's also like the trials and challenges you're going to face. But the challenges and the trials come with the success. They can also come with failure, but between failure and success, you can only have one of those options if you want to. You can really only succeed if you want to, even though you're still going to have those trials. So that's sort of what I want to talk about in this video, and I want to know your guys' thoughts on it, because I feel like it's hardly talked about, and I think some people call it like cope, because it's like, oh, well, you're just coping because you want everything to go well, and it's not actually how it is, like dooming about everything. But I don't think there's a point in that, because that's just going to limit you. Like there's literally no positive to that. It's just a net negative, and it always will be. And not to saying you can't be realistic about some things, of course you can, but in some ways, the more long-term things, I think you have to be delusional. I'm going to say that again. On the more long-term goals that you have to be more delusional about them. Because it's hard to be realistic about something so far in the future, because there's so many variables to be put in, Whereas if it's like the day-to-day things, it's less variables and they sort of just happen. So you're like, oh, I can be positive on that, but you got to be positive on the whole thing, So again, let me know your thoughts, your experiences that you've had with similar things. But anyway, thanks for watching.